Oh, Lando, what are you going to do with your mate? It's not good, is it? And when I say Lando, of course, I'm meaning Lando and McLaren, because two of them are both equally culpable, right? Couple of races back to back now, they've had opportunities of taking themselves 25 points, and yet and still somehow the papaya-coloured team managed to seize defeat from the jaws of victory. Oh, the humanity. And you know what? I flip back and forth with this. Sometimes I'm harsh on them. Sometimes I want to be empathetic. Yesterday, on a live chat with my guy Baxter on the Twitter sphere, I argued that McLaren aren't there yet. They've come along massively. Humongous steps have been made as far as their design philosophy. True or false? Who's developed their car better than they have? Expedited for their learning curve more expeditiously than McLaren. And for that, they're to be given some credit. Absolutely, Andrea Stelli has had a hand in that now. God tier level team principle, God tier racing mind, Pep Guardiola settings of F1. That chap is incredible, is he not? However, I think that we need to have a conversation, an open and honest one. I'll be honest, no fan playing F1 24 tonight. I still haven't bought that one, to be fair. I don't know why they just keep the game the same each and every single iteration and then just want to charge £50. But let's talk about McLaren, because I think they're worthy of critique. They can't keep making these mistakes. Lando Norris can't keep doing this. Because again, there were mistakes on both driver and team side yesterday, weren't there? There were. Lando Norris didn't even park it properly in his pit box. Okay, so tyres, ultimately McLaren are culpable for that. But even Lando Norris in the post-race press conference, said that he had a hand in deciding the tyres. One Christian Horner said of their decision not to go on the mediums and instead to mirror the tyre choice in the latter stint of that Grand Prix of McLaren, to put on those soft compound tyres. Christian Horner said of that decision that it was baffling. It made no sense. That everybody knew that soft compounds were not the apex predator when compared to mediums. And indeed, if it makes it any better or worse, McLaren were the only team still to have a fresh set of mediums ready to go. Oh, the humanity. Way to seize defeat from the jaws of victory, McLaren. What are we doing? Christian Horner continues in his diatribe saying that any fool could have looked at the first stint and those guys who were on softs did not perform well. The evidence was there for McLaren. They just did one of these, didn't they? Averted their gaze, failed to pay attention to it. What are we doing then? How can all of a sudden you have the fastest car arguably on the grid and yet and still you are so wasteful with the points? McLaren, you might argue, aren't ready for this yet. Gets a bit techie, and Jake Nicol of Racing 365 has argued such. Here's what he had to say, and I think this is interesting. It's that they're yet to be consistently tested in white-hot racing environment that is the pressure cooker of elite sport. Agree, Jake Nicol? What did I say earlier? For the avoidance of doubt, to reiterate, they have come very far in a very short space of time. They aren't Red Bull. They aren't Mercedes as far as their operational excellence, because they don't have the tenure underneath them. Operational excellence, some say consistently, is of course a function of time spent at the top in the white hot environment, competing for 25 points each and every single race that Jake Nicol of Racing 365 speaks to, is it not? However, he argues that McLaren will be stronger for these mistakes and blunders, but like any good race team, you do not get better without making mistakes. True, Jake, but the frequency and the extent of these errors, as at the last Grand Prix, Silverstone, British Grand Prix, I think is too much now. Mediums. Let's put the mediums on, chaps. What are we doing? Why are we even communicating, trying to hold a decision-making process by consensus with Lando Norris is in the car? He does not have perfect information. Can he see that the guys that run softs the very first stint of the race didn't do well? No, he can't. So why are you consulting him then? And even the verbiage that they use, the mode of communication, their turn of phrase was negative. Do you want to cover off Lewis on the softs or Max on the hards? What type of message is that? Lando's trying to mitigate 1,000 things, manage all of the juggle balls in real time as far as his brand, his own personal brand of automotive pugilism. So why are you asking him these tough, difficult questions? Do you not have a strategic team, Andrea Stella, that should be taking notes, making these decisions correctly in real time? What are we doing, McLaren? This is nonsense. How dare you be so wasteful so consistently? This is F1. This is not the place to be rewarding mediocrity consistently. What are we doing? It's nonsense. Listen, and I just want to see Lando do well. I like Lando a lot. I do like him. Listen, he's still in his formative phase. Again, as far as competing with the likes of Max and Louis. And you can argue, you know what? On the back of Silverstone, that yet and still it's a two-tier championship as far as the driver capacities. You have Lewis and you have Max. They're on a completely different plane to the rest. None of the other 18 can keep with them. Abu Dhabi 2021 season entire, of course, being proof positive of that. But Lando Norris is only half the story, eh? What did Oscar Piastri have to say? What are we doing? Because you could argue that as far as Sabotage, Oscar Piastri was on the heavier end of it, was he not? Again, people are saying that he lost anywhere around 10 seconds by virtue of the double stack. What is that about? Just double stack them, McLaren. I understand there's pressure to deliver and execution is tough, etc., etc. But what, just leave out Oscar Piastri instead? And this has been a couple of races now where they've, as near as makes no difference, sabotaged Oscar Piastri, who is a god, tier 1, by the way. What are we doing? They need to sort out their act, do they not? It's techie. Let me read out what Christian Horner said, because this is quite telling. Is what he had to say. What was baffling for us was that McLaren were the only team that had a new medium available to them, and they chose not to run it. And inevitably, when it comes down to it, it's down to those marginal details that make the difference. What are we doing, chat? Like, genuinely, when Christian Horner is doubling down and calling you baffling, then surely if you're McLaren, Zach Brown, Andrea Stella, Norris, Piastri et al., they now need to be having a word with themselves, a very stern one. Take a look in the mirror, chaps. You have yourself the most difficult thing to get in Formula One, which is, of course, is a car capable of winning races and therefore championships. Use it then. In a conversation I had with the legend that is Shez of the Shakedown, he said sometimes the window of opportunity in F1 opens and closes before you even notice. It doesn't even, unless your eye is discerning, you can't even notice it. So quickly do these things happen. Ergo, McLaren need to take advantage of the circumstance in which they find themselves. No longer do I want to hear this stuff from Lando Norris after the fact, talking about we had the opportunity to win but we didn't, being a Debbie Downer and a negative Nancy. And again, because that's not going to help him going forward. He also has a part to play. Partially culpable, is he not? Please see the very speculative move that he tried to put around the outside of Lewis Hamilton on lap 1. That was never going to work, and it's this sort of thing that Lando needs to fix for in real time, because he wasn't perfect either. He too made mistakes. But I digress. In other news, Enrico Cardile is leaving Scuderia Ferrari to join Aston Martin, and this is where it gets chaotic. because I don't think that story in and of itself means much. But as far as the bigger picture, the broader context being no one knows where Adrian Newey is going next year, I think this is significant. Lest we forget that Lawrence Stroll harbours aspirations to form himself a technical dream team. Andy Cowell, not long appointed to, and again, he was the God tier 1 that managed to nail the 2014 rules and regs as far as Mercedes in that split turbo hybrid unit. He's now in situ at the Green Machine, heading up by one Lawrence Stroll. Now they've gone and signed Enrico Cardile, who again, by all accounts, is a God tier 1. Technical director settings, he will be another key person. Intellectual property, God tier settings. Is Adrian Newey not the final jewel in that crown? Who knows, eh? All I do know is that the very same exclusive factory tour that Lawrence Stroll gave to Andy Cowell not long before he signed, that's the same tour that they gave to Adrian Newey. They emptied out the factory, didn't they? Told all the workers, go home. This is Adrian Newey's house for today, and we need to impress him. Take that for whatever you will. What does that mean? McLaren? Aston Martin? I have it on good authority that Adrian is considering his options, one of which is Aston Martin. Is that the least likely outcome? Probably not. Toto Wolff, go on and let's talk about Lewis. In fact, let me please take a moment and smash the lights, says Lazy. Let's go. Jay says, but there is only that, but it is only Ferrari capable of doing Ferrari. McLaren are just a bunch of posers with a fast car that try to beat the Ferrari strategy. Jay, are we going to really put Ferrari in the same bucket with McLaren? Have you seen their car, Jay? Remember, one of their drivers ran an upgraded floor. The other one ran the old floor. Carlos Sainz wasn't buying into it. He tested it and saw that it wasn't going anywhere. Leave that nonsense, that flotsam and jetsam of a design philosophy to the monegasque modern day journalese, right? I'm not driving that, said Carlos Sainz Jr. What are you doing? This is a backward step. Carlos Sainz Jr. to that point has said that he thinks that Ferrari are anywhere up to 2 months behind the rest of the field in terms of their development curve. Oh, the humanity. How do Scuderia Ferrari always find themselves in this nonsense? Beggars belief. Chat. It's bonkers. How very dare you, Jay, put Scuderia Ferrari and McLaren in the same sentence even. One of those teams has a car capable of winning races consistently, and that team has a name. That team's name is McLaren. How very dare you, Jay? Take those two teams out of the same sentence. Gonna get techie. All right, look, Lewis. In fact, let's do Checo before. You know I like to go scorched earth on Checo. What are we doing? Christian Horner's now come out and said Checo Perez's performance is unsustainable. The tone of Christian Horner, Red Bull team principal, gets more severe and severe by the second. A couple of weeks ago, it was all happy-go-lucky roses, positive affirmation. He will come good in time. Just let him get back to that mindset that he had during the first 5 races of the season, and he will come too, was Christian Horner. Patience in extremis. It didn't even sound like Christian Horner, but again, I've said on a gazillion occasions, and I will say it here again for the avoidance of doubt, a Lannister, aka Christian Horner, always pays his debts. There were 2 drivers at Red Bull, only one of which came out unequivocally and backed their team principal during peak Christian Horner allegation gate. That driver has a name, and his name is Sergio Checo Perez. Christian Horner, in his own mind, I am betting, conjecturing that there was a debt owed to the Mexican driver, formerly known as the Mexican Minister of Defense. Moniker has to be revoked because his performance thus far season to date has been an abomination. Oh, the humanity. How can you get beat by Logan Sargent 7 times in qualifying? Logan Sargent is not a good driver, nor does he have himself a good car in that Williams. 7 times. As near as makes no difference over the past few races, Sergio Checo Perez doesn't even get out of Q1, not Q2. Not asking him to put it on pole and lock out the front row with Maximilian Verstappen. He doesn't even get out of Q1. What are we doing? 15 points over the past 5 races. What are we doing, Checo Perez? This is unacceptable, chap. And again, if he was just a rubbish driver, let's say if he were a Ralph Schumacher type, as an example, being a bit unfair on Ralph, but you get where I'm going. If he were rubbish, if he couldn't drive, if we hadn't seen examples of him being God tier previously, then it would be an easier pill to swallow, would it not? However, Checo once upon a time was God tier. Please see Abu Dhabi 21, Turkey 2. He was a massive thorn in the side of Lewis Hamilton. A tropiezo of sort, a stumbling block that ultimately prevented Lewis Hamilton from winning a championship, some might say. So what are we doing? How did we get here? Not for want of trying, by the way, because Checo Perez put some time in the sim before the British Grand Prix. All of a sudden now he realised he's at DEFCON 5, and the urgency with which Christian Horner is talking about his circumstances rings true, right? Got to do something, Checo. Not tomorrow, now. And he has been working at it, but then this is more cause for concern, right? If he's working hard and it's still not coming to, then has it gone forever? Has that opportunity gone by the wayside for Checo Perez? Is it too late already? And again, if rumour in the F1 curb is something that you're invested in, people are reasoning, speculating that Checo Perez might be gonzo out of that car as soon as the summer break. Oh, the humanity. But I don't hate it. I'd love to go to bat for Checo Perez. Back his case, because I like the guy. He's a really nice person, a human being. But as far as his performance is on track, I have no case. There is no defence for that extent of underperformance, for it is material. Now, what are we doing, Checo? Nonsense. Who's going to replace him? You let me know in the chat, who do you think is going to replace him? Because people are saying it could be it's between 3, right? Danny Rick, Liam Lawson, Carlos Sainz Jr. I think Carlos Sainz should be the pole sitter for that Red Bull seat. Which one of those drivers named Danny Rick or Liam Lawson is better than him? More of a guarantee. Think about what you need in that Red Bull second seat. You need a rear gunner, right? Somebody who's not going to cause Max Verstappen too many problems. But when Max Verstappen does DNF on a rare occasion, you need somebody who's capable, quick enough and smart enough to step up. What is Carlos Sainz Jr.? If not, that puts him in that seat then. And you know that being as smart as Carlos Sainz Jr. is the man from Madrid, that ultimately he's waiting, delaying signing any contract, knowing that Red Bull and Mercedes too are an option still for him. Oh, the humanity. Forget about Danny Rick. Love Danny Rick to bits again. Honey Badger settings, charisma, of course. He's a brilliant guy. I'm warm to him. How can you not? That Cheshire Cat smile, like he's a huggable, he's a lovable guy, right? But I mean, we were talking about Red Bull. Don't jump out of the frying pan, Christian Horner, into the fire. How about Yuki Tsunoda? Oh, the shoe does not fit. Sadly, for whatever reason. Liam Lawson, too premature. How are you going to just get him in that car? Maybe the RB Visa cash app should Danny Rick continue to underperform too. But Liam Lawson alongside Max Verstappen. Lest we forget that Maximilian Verstappen is the ruiner of careers, right? Please see Daniel Kvyat. Please see Alex Albon very nearly. Those guys sit in that car alongside him and they can't even drive the car. So sensitive, so on the nose is it? Are you saying to me that Liam Lawson will be able to manage for that drive around that very quirky, peculiar handling dynamic of the RB20 in his maiden voyage? I think not. Go on then. Let's talk about Lewis. Nico Hulkenberg will not be a bad shout, Christian. I don't know. Sainz will not be at Red Bull with Max in the other car. It's techie, isn't it, Jay? The word on the F1 curb says that they don't want... Christian already has too many plates spinning, too many automotive pugilism balls are juggling to then go and have to fend off Carlos Sainz Sr. and Jos Verstappen in the same gauge. Didn't work out back in the day. Toro Rosso 2015-16 did it. It was difficult then, and it probably would be even more difficult now. Although the counter argument to that, Jay, is that Carlos Sainz has not separated necessarily from his dad, but there is more space. So too Max, that Jos Verstappen doesn't even attend Grand Prix hardly these days. You'll see him around, but he's not at every Grand Prix again like he used to be, eh? It gets techie. Let's talk about Lewis then. Oh, the humanity. Am I going to start crying again? Hay fever settings. Go on and let's talk about Lewis, because I just watched the post-race press conference and he had some things to say. Look, more than the race performance yesterday, it was the story, of course, the narrative. Peter Windsor spoke to it. It was almost the redemption post 2021 season, right? This is the story arc that was promised, per se. GOAT, says Christian. Like, I can't hate, I mean, you know what I mean? There were other competitors for that title, but time and place is key, right? Like, the temporal settings. That GOAT moniker is of the moment, surely. On the back of the Silverstone Grand Prix, what happened? All of the adversity, driving that Mercedes that's been a dog for so long. No longer is it an SH1T box. George Russell puts it on pole. There are a couple words that jump off the page. Adversity is one. Story arc is two. Resilience is three, around what Sir Lewis Hamilton has gone through and what he's still going through, right? In his final, his grand tour with the boys and girls at Brackley and Brixworth. This is techie. This is techie. And then even afterwards, again, listen, racing is racing, right? And there is always going to be evocative moments as far as the great ones, Lewis and Max. There will always be those, right? But it wasn't the sporting endeavour that I feel triggered so many emotions in so many different people, both Lewis and non-Lewis Hamilton fans alike, all over the world. What I think it was the afters. Seeing Lewis trundle around on the victory lap, or whatever you want to call it, and hearing his communication and the frog in his throat. He could barely talk to Bono. Seeing and hearing the outpouring of emotion between those two, who have been brothers in arms in F1 for the longest time now. You could hear it. It was tangible, was it not? And listen, hearing that and seeing it, it was tough. Hay fever settings, Cameron. I couldn't cope with it. And then, to make matters worse, more tear-jerking settings. Lewis Hamilton, again, can't get out the car for a while, right? He needs to give him a second to compose, because you know he's trying to hold back the tears in the car. Abu Dhabi 2021, any? Reminiscent of, right? And then finally Lewis dismounts the car and goes into the arms of none other than Anthony Hamilton, the legend, his father, the man who took him back and forth during his formative motorsporting phase, the man who fixed his car, the man who travelled all around Europe, the man who worked 27 jobs or whatever to finance Lewis Hamilton's career. Falls into his arms again. And again, F1 history doesn't often repeat, but sometimes it does rhyme. Reminiscent was that embrace of Abu Dhabi. You remember Abu Dhabi 21 when the two of them embraced in front of the FIA logo. Oh, the humanity. Oh, the irony. And again, same thing again. And I just lost my mind. Millions and millions of F1 fans around the world. Hay fever settings. What else were we to do? It's Lewis Hamilton, for Pete's sake. Many of us have grown up with this chap. I am, as near as makes no difference, the same age of Lewis. He came into the sport. I was watching him GP2, Pizzioni, PK Jr., Silverstone, GP2, 2006. What do you mean? 2007 turn 1 lap 1. What do you mean? 2007 China, a pit stop away from winning the championship in his maiden voyage. What do you mean? 2008 finally gets it over the line. Then between 2009 and 2013 doesn't have the car, jumps from McLaren to Mercedes in 2014 to the Rancor, much to the disagreement of F1 aficionados around the world, because you don't leave a McLaren to go to Mercedes. What are you doing? Now, of course, everybody bats 1,000 in hindsight, right? It's obvious now. At the time, though, leaving McLaren to go to Mercedes, a fledgling team, brawn, that makes no sense. You just don't do that. McLaren are an institution in F1, a Ron Dennis-led McLaren. What, you're going to leave the same team that Senna and Prost drove for? 88, 89, 90, 90. What, that same team that dominated F1, that's who you're leaving to go to Mercedes for, Sir Lewis, Carl Davidson. It seemed like nonsense. It didn't even, I can't even say it was brave. It seemed stupid at the time, and then he goes and bags his second championship. What are we doing here? So it's the story arc, and it's the journey, and it's a lot. Cathartic is what someone said it was, and I think that's probably the most apt word. Cathartic is very apropos. And Louis spoke to this in the post-race press conference. In fact, let me read out what Toto had to say. Because Toto, again, their relationship, I'm not going to say their relationship is techie, but I want to say it has been strained. Of course, Toto being taken by surprise once again by a driver leaving the team very, very suddenly, something that he hadn't anticipated for. Please see Nico Rosberg in 2016 having won his first and only championship, and then he sacked it off. Again, Toto Wolff doesn't like surprises, and he's had a couple, 2 more than he'd like for over the past few years. But this is what Toto had to say on the back of Lewis Hamilton's Grand Prix victory, the British Grand Prix yesterday. He's been there for me, and most recently I've tried to do my contribution for his doubting at times, and that's why it feels really good that he's been able to put all the negative thoughts or negativity aside and come up with this performance. Oh, the humanity. They're a double that, aren't they? Like brothers almost. You know, you love and hate them in equal measure, concurrently almost. That's the relationship that they have. Gets techie. This is what it meant. You see me saying it's cathartic and building it up and talking about story arc. Let me put some statistics even to the achievement for context. Lewis Hamilton now, as at yesterday, post the British Grand Prix, he has broken the 300 race curse, being that there is no drivers competed in 300 or more F1 Grand Prix who has ever gone on to win another Grand Prix. Broken that curse. This is his 16 different season in which he's won a race. Again, record-breaking settings. He's now a 9-time Silverstone winner, record-breaking settings. Not just at Silverstone, but for winning the same Grand Prix again. Before, it was 8, tied with Michael Schumacher. That's his 150th podium for Mercedes. 150 podiums. Some people don't even get one. Go all their career, a long career, and don't even get one podium. He has 150 for Mercedes alone. What are we doing here? 12 consecutive podiums at Silverstone. First driver in history to win races in 16 different seasons. What you're talking about, tenure, length of service, because it's difficult for your flame to burn brightly at all, ever, in Formula One, but it's even more difficult once you get the mountaintop to keep that flame burning bright for a long time. To go back to the mountaintop, Sisyphus settings, right? If you're a mythology Donny, it's just hard. It's difficult in any top level sport. The motivation, doing what you need to do every single day, going to the bloody gym, eating healthy, drinking lots of water, going to bed on time. It's just hard. It's monotonous. Even, and testament to Sir Lewis Hamilton that he's managed to do it, notwithstanding all of the outside external conflicting circumstances. There you go. So at the post-race press conference, Funky, what are you saying, Funky? I hope you're good. Michael, nobody of a 300 Grand Prix gets a good cut. That's the good shout, Michael. You've added context to the narrative. Logic, says Jay, they would state Max does not end up at Ferrari. Everyone looks mean in Mercedes black. Have you seen the pictures of Max in those Mercedes overalls? We'll talk about that in a second. Let me nail this one, and then we'll talk about Max very quickly, because there's ramifications, downside ones potentially for Red Bull on the back of the British Grand Prix. Post-race presser. Here's what Lewis had to say, and I think we need to engage this meaningfully. He was asked in the latter phase of the press conference after the race yesterday, you know, the one where there's the podium guys, so obviously it was Max, Lando and Lewis sat there in the middle. He was asked whether you were so emotional celebrating this victory because this was the final jigsaw puzzle to help you move on from Abu Dhabi 21. Lewis responds, you can see him it's a meaningful question, right? Lewis responds, I mean, it's a long-winded question, as he delays for time with a view to gather himself. There's one of these, you know, and you look up to, because you're trying to get the precursory tears. You want to ready the tear glands to just do one of those. He says, only time will tell whether it's the final jigsaw puzzle that helps me heal from Abu Dhabi in 2021. But you know what? As at now, the commitment to the team, here's what he's speaking to Lewis, quote, it's the commitment to the team, the love I have for this team, and the love that I have for this job. It's the best job in the world. Remember, this is Sir Lewis Hamilton, 39 years old, speaking like this about being an F1 driver. He's nothing if not a racer, hence why he's still hanging around, because he loves this. He says that he's taken all the right decisions with a view to try and move on from the pain that was 2021. He says even the decision to move on next year is the right one, but he's still grateful to be among these drivers, the best ostensibly 20 in the world. Oh, the humanity. Go and watch that press conference when you get a chance. Poignant any, telling any, profound any in those answers, as far as the cathartic moment for Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton, that the Silverstone victory, that the record-breaking Silverstone victory represented to him. Oh, the humanity. Chaos. Clinton, AB21 was the deepest valley and Silverstone 24 was the highest mountain peak. Sisyphus settings, Clinton. It was different, wasn't it? Hay fever. Lest I want to start, I haven't got any more tear glands left, I'll tell you that much. Though I'll give you a preliminary thumbs up to the strides that AMR is making. Honda engine, all new stuff. If Newey does end up there, it will be interesting. Oh, the humanity. You know what else is techie? Look at this. Who did they get rid of recently if we're connecting Aston Martin dots? Martin Whitmarsh. To make room for Andy Cowell. Rumour, word on the F1 curb is that, do I even say this? That Adrian Newey, I don't think, don't quote me on this, but I don't think Adrian Newey is a big fan of Martin Whitmarsh. They worked together in a previous life, didn't they, at McLaren? Is Lawrence Stroll, the non-rhetorical question, is Lawrence Stroll making way for the imminent arrival of the goatiest aero-minding F1 being one Adrian Newey? I wouldn't be surprised. I still favour him to go to either. Oh, I don't know. I just can't tell at this point. He's going to make his decision in September, right? Maybe we'd be better placed to just wait until then. One of three, right? Scuderia, Ferrari, McLaren, won't be Mercedes, or Aston Martin. Oh, the humanity. Funky says, I kid you not. Turned up at Woodland Farm campsite. Our pitch numbers were 44. Oh my gosh. I was having palpitations all weekend until he crossed the. Look at that, Funky. I don't believe in all that stuff, you know, the like superstition, but you know, in that if, mate, it's worked out Sunday, eh? It's allergy season. Lazy, did you have it as well? It was a moment, wasn't it? It's one of those ones that you will remember. Like, how can you not? Oh, just to know. Silverstone 2024, lest we forget. Antonelli won this weekend. He did indeed win the sprint race, didn't he? Or the feature race, whatever they got. I can't remember. Clinton. I want Kimi Antonelli to be good. I really do. I want him to be the next one. But sometimes we superimpose onto these young prospects our own confirmation bias, right? I think we need to take a step back, see the F2 wood for the F2 trees, and just allow Kimi to come on at his own, right? About that. because we're talking about Mercedes driving seats, aren't we? Finally, let me tell you about this. Maximilian Verstappen. Every race that he loses and Mercedes wins is a step closer to Mercedes that Maximilian Verstappen takes. Remember, listen, I keep reiterating this, but Maximilian Verstappen is nothing if not a truthsayer. He said he needs 2 things to ensure that he stays. Remember, they were pressing him last race weekend, getting him to try and stamp out all the rumours about him moving on. He danced around the subject topic and didn't want to be, he wasn't necessarily forthcoming with the words that the world's press and journos wanted to hear, being, yes, I will stay at Red Bull until my contract ceases in 2028. Even now, I haven't heard those words come out of Max Verstappen's mouth. Eventually, when asked 2 or 3 times, here's what he said: Alonso, long overdue a win since 2012 LA, and he wasn't bad in 2012, right? Some say as far as outperforming a car's up ceiling, that 2012 is your that's your case in point. That's your best example in F1 history. He was god tier that season, was Fernando El Pan Alonso, man from Oviedo, Astoria. But look, let me tell you this, as far as Max in black looking good. Have you seen it, Joanna? It looks like I feel like Max in those black Mercedes overalls might break the space-time continuum. Like, it feels like it's just weird. Like it's like a black swan. Like it's really hard for me to conceive of that. Max jumping into the black Mercedes, working with the boys and girls from Brackley and Brixworth, race engineered by Peter Bonington. What are we doing? I don't know. I can't, mate. Chaos. I say all that to say this: every single time Mercedes win a race between now and whenever is a step that Max takes closer to signing with Mercedes. He's told 2 things he needs. Needs a dominant car. His answer to that question, by the way: listen, we need to keep working on the car. Before he said yes, 2 to 3 times he was asked, right, are you going to stamp out these rumours that you're going to Mercedes? Each and every single time he talked about the team, he talked about we need to work on the car. The car's got fundamental flaws, curbing. It's all about the car. Meaning, if he can get a car, ultimately when pressed, he said, listen, I need a car and I need harmony. To the harmony point first. Last weekend, lest we forget, Christian Horner overtyped Jos Verstappen's efforts to drive his son car. He was supposed to be driving it in the legendary parade, wasn't he? Christian Horner put the kibosh on that. More acrimony, less harmony. So you could argue that he does not have the first to the second around the car. Like I said, this is a moving target. Maybe Red Bull come back and win all of the races between now and season end, and then we don't have ourselves a conversation. But maybe Mercedes continue to chip away. They're bringing more upgrades to the next Grand Prix, are they not? Toto Wolff is acutely aware. The more that he can show and prove that that car is capable of winning races and championships, the more that he enhances the probability that Max will sign for him. Oh, the humanity. And lest we forget, there was news last week from virtue of Christian Horner that Max has taken a keen interest in how that Red Bull Ford power unit. I wonder why. Might it be the fact that word on the F1 curb, all the rumour and speculation indicates that Mercedes are ahead of the curve, that their power unit in 2026 under the new rules and regs might be the source of durable competitive advantage. Indeed, they might be the market leader. That's even discounted for them expediting their design philosophy learning curve in real time. Oh, the humanity. What are we doing? I always liked Anakin Skywalker, says Lazy. Mate, Max Emilian Verstappen, Nepotissimo. You guys are killing me. It's going to get techie. The next couple of races, I'm telling you, they mean more than you might think. And Toto Wolff will be acutely aware of that. I think they could be fundamental, no, decisive even, as far as where Max Verstappen ends up at. As soon as 2025, what are we doing? Oh, the humanity. Jay said it's not only Max. The Mercedes black looks mean on with everyone in it. It's the black itself that makes you even more menacing. I'm telling you, it's techie, Jay. Max Verstappen in that Mercedes. What? I can't even comprehend it. Max Verstappen in the black overalls and Lewis in the red. Oh, the humanity. I simply cannot. It's too much. CH offering JV to Merck was pretty funny. Yeah, why is he doing that for though, Macon? It's banter and it's funny. It's hilarious. But remember what Max said, right? He needs two things: harmony of sorts and a car. And again, I pitched it at Peter Windsor earlier on. Can you make the case that as at July 2024, he has neither? Ergo, listen, before, like a couple of months back when Mercedes didn't have a car, I would have argued that the probability of Maximilian Verstappen going to Mercedes in 2025 was as near as makes no difference. 0. As at the 8th of July 2024, it's not 0 anymore, is it? It's greater than that, and materially so. Oh, the humanity. But I digress.